So let's talk about, let me show you what the 5 qualities are. Yeah, I see a few people have added new things like cross-cultural empathy. That's great. So Gabor, go ahead and click through those and I can explain what each one is. The first 2 are passion and energy. So I start with that one because, yeah, this was something that all of the CEOs repeated. China can be an exhausting market. It's very rewarding, but it's also challenging. So passion and energy was the first quality needed by all CEOs, whether you're Chinese or not. The second one is speed in decision making. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but basically the idea is that China is really fast paced, and so one of the qualities you need as a leader is to be able to make decisions fast. This quote coming from Mary Boyd, she's the director for China of Economist Group, and she said a key challenge that CEOs face in China versus other markets where they might have worked is the speed. In particular, new possibilities that are opened up whenever policies change. So the government is, very influential in China, even more so than in other countries. And so when policies change, you need to be able to really react quickly. And that's another aspect of why speed is such an important quality in China. Great. The third one is clear vision and shared framework. So the idea is that in China, it's such a challenging market that you need to be the kind of leader who creates and disseminates a very clear vision and then ensure that your whole team aligns with that vision. So this is a nice quote from Kai Zhang. She's the CEO for China of Manulife Sinochem. And she said that the qualities of a leader in China is not only strategic vision, but also a specific roadmap. So maybe getting more detailed, more involved with the day-to-day operations than you might in another country, because the challenges can be greater, maybe less predictable, and at some point your team is going to come to a point where what she called hitting the wall, which means they're not going to know where to go. And so this shared vision in China, as a leader based in China, means that you have to get to a level of detail that you might not need to do in other countries, and help the team in a more hands-on way than you probably would need to in other countries. This is the same one, but with another quote. This comes from Robert Xiong. Robert Xiong is the China CEO for Udacity. It's an education company. And he said, the number one important thing is the ability to come up with a clear vision and strategy, to communicate that strategy to your team, and then get everyone to move forward together. So the idea from all the different CEOs that we interviewed is that China is it can be chaotic, it can be confusing, and so this shared vision and alignment becomes really essential to success in China. L'Oreal was one of my favorite companies to include in this book, partly because we included L'Oreal in the first book, and between 2006 and 2020, L'Oreal had just bloomed into a huge and hugely successful company in China, so it was really interesting to include them for the second time. And Stefan Renderknich, who was the China CEO for L'Oreal at that time, now he's gone on to an even higher position in charge of North America, talked a lot about the importance of the shared framework and shared vision. He basically said that as a leader, his job is to kick off big campaigns and make everyone understand what's expected of them, and then just be on the sidelines to troubleshoot. So this, of course, requires having the right team, but basically he's also one of the CEOs who emphasized the need for speed so much. And he said the only way you can achieve that is by having the right people and then setting the right targets and basically pointing everyone in the right direction and just standing on the sidelines until, kind of as a coach, until somebody runs into trouble and then helping to troubleshoot, but keeping the ball in motion was kind of the summary of his interview. Really interesting guy. Yeah, the fourth one is a new one that is new for this issue of China CEO 2, and that is to empower the local team. So one of the differences between the two books is just that the level of expertise, professionalism, internationalism of Chinese talent has increased a lot. And so this was something that wasn't emphasized as much in the first book as it was in the second book. Basically, the CEOs told me that you cannot succeed in China today unless you not only recognize and advance the local team, but empower them to make their own decisions. Basically, this quote from the former China CEO of Carrefour is a nice example. And he said, you have to trust the Chinese management at every level, including young people. So understanding that China is changing so fast, it's digitizing, there's no way that a CEO can keep up with all the changes. So you need to hire the right team and then trust them. And not trust them based on years with the company, but expertise. So in some cases, trusting people younger than was the case a few years ago. That's another new trend that's was very clearly mentioned by the CEOs. Okay, let's go down to the final essential. Okay, this is still another quote on the empowering the local team. This one comes from Coca-Cola's China CEO, Kurt Ferguson, who was a wonderful person to interview. Coke is another company that was super successful in China and grew a lot between the time that I did the first and second book. He gave this story about, how he typically answers his Chinese staff when they ask him what to do. So this is another example of empowering the local team. And he mentioned that, the Chinese education system still emphasizes hierarchy quite a lot. And so it's a kind of challenge, but you need to empower the local team, and you need to also train your Chinese team to allow themselves to be empowered. So in other words, the team, if they've come from a Chinese traditional education system or started their career with Chinese companies, they probably won't be used to being as empowered as they need to be in order for multinational companies to succeed in China. So this creates a challenge for CEOs. You need to empower a team which is not used to being empowered, and so that becomes a cultural issue. So this little vignette that he shared with me about how he typically answers questions from his Chinese team, of course he hires the right team who he trusts, but basically when they come to and they ask what they should do, he tries to push it back on them and say, you probably know more than me what to do, and so make your own decision, and if it fails, we'll fail together. So this was an interesting mindset that was repeated again and again by the different CEOs from different companies. And the last one, ability to make tough decisions. So this is Alain Crozier, the Chinese CEO from Microsoft. And what I often do when I'm teaching about what it's like to work in China, I often give this example. So I'm going to try it here and see if it works. If a very clear example of how fast things are changing in China is the rise and change in a new technology called share bikes. So share bikes, of course, exist in Europe and in the US and other parts of Asia. But if anyone who's been in China in the past 4 years knows that the share bike phenomenon grew suddenly out of almost nowhere and became a huge phenomenon in China. So Microsoft used that as an example to show how challenging it can be to be a China CEO. And Alain Crozier explained to me that there was a moment when 5 of the, I think, top bike share companies all came to Microsoft asking Microsoft to be their technology partner. And he realized that he couldn't work with all 5 of them because they were direct competitors. So, how to choose between the 5 different, all, exciting looking, well-financed, but fiercely competing bike share companies. So we use that as an example of, when I asked him, what's a day in the life of a CEO in China like? What are the challenges that you face? He asked me to imagine his situation when he was faced with this issue. So I'm going to leave this for the Q&A. Hopefully some of you listening will be curious to know how Microsoft handled that problem and get some learning out of it in terms of how in China you need to be able to make tough decisions. And he'll share with us how he made that tough decision. So I'll leave that there, and hopefully somebody will ask me, what did Alain Crozier do? How does he advise?
I will definitely ask you. But in the meantime, I think if our participants want to type a couple of options into the box, that would be interesting as well. So how to decide?
Yeah, how to decide between 5 competing share bike companies that all want to partner with Microsoft. Each of them looked very interesting and had investment, had a nice business strategy. So you can't wait too long. How are you going to choose between the 5? So anybody has some ideas, please type them in, and we'll get to that at the end of my talk.